Andreas, Jhon, thank you for your generosity and your heartfelt time. I really appreciate it. It's lovely.
Okay, I got the honor to do the first question. As Jhon said in Spanish, it's really an honor to have you here. And before we send you a question, because one friend of the channel sent a video to asking you for something because he's a big fan on a screenplay that you wrote, I got a question that I need to do, man. There are two interesting projects in which one you wrote and one you acted. Very great movies of these last years that are Maps of the Stars, of course, you wrote it, but also Night of Gods from two great directors, Cronenberg and Malick. Tell me, like, yeah, what was the experience? Because I think there are two really great visions about what is the world now, the men living or women living in this society. Tell me more. Love those movies, by the way.
Well, you're completely different experiences. Terry wanted me to be in the movie, wanted a real Hollywood writer to be in the movie and play themselves. So Wally Shawn is a very old friend of Terry, and I think that Terry reached out to me through Wally, and it was fun. It was all improvised, I'm stopping so you can translate. You know what I mean? Or do you want me just to continue talking?
Go ahead. In fact, I will translate only at the end because we wanna listen to you. I will translate everything to Jhon, so don't worry.
So that was this cameo. I was, of course, an enormous fan of Terry Malick's films, and I felt very privileged to suddenly be in one of his films. So that was improvised. Those were my own words. He gave very little direction. I mean, it was absurd how little direction he gave me, but very generous. And I was basically thrown into a lion's pit, He said, he introduced me to Antonio Banderas and all of the actors. And suddenly he said, I want you to interrupt them. And I said, and in what way? And he said, just interrupt them, So this was difficult, but interesting. And I spent 6 or 7 hours doing that, The Cronenberg movie, of course, was something that I'd written many years ago. That was a kind of dream project that I felt would never be made because there would be no filmmaker on earth but David that would make it. David and I were friends. I showed it to him, but I didn't show it to him in the sense of, would you consider making this film? Because David doesn't work that way. Everything is very intuitive for him, and he doesn't develop projects either. He either is captured by something or not. And he called me many, many years later and said that he wanted to make the movie. And he got Julianne Moore to come on board. But then the movie fell apart because he wanted to shoot the entire movie in Los Angeles, and it was impossible in terms of the amount of money that would have cost. So another 4 or 5 years went by. David made maybe 3 movies. And then he was at Cannes with Cosmopolis, and Robert Pattinson agreed to do the movie Sight Unseen. So then the movie was made 25 years later.
It was the time in which David made A History of Violence and History of Promises. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You blew me. I will translate a little part because Jhon needs to know the history. I will translate it shortly. Jhon, solo traducir esto. La escena en Night of Gods fue completamente improvisada. Lo único que le dijo Malick fue interrumpe a Antonio Banderas y a los actores. Con eso te digo todo, 6 horas. Y Jhon, estoy sorprendido porque Maps to the Stars duró 25 años en hacerse. Fue el periodo en que Cronenberg se retiró 25 años e hizo A History of Violence, tú sabes. Es increíble. Sigue, yo. I'm blown away for that answer, but I will continue translating, man. I love those movies. Dale, John.
Excelente pregunta y gran respuesta, bro. Y también está, bueno, esta pregunta que le hace Rubén Arnaiz es un cineasta español. Él quiere hablar sobre la trilogía, bueno, la tercera parte de Pesadilla, La calle del infierno.
Ajá.
Yo quiero preguntarle y más bien complementar con los de Rubén es si alguna vez has considerado que los sueños son parte de la premonición o gran parte que le ayudaba a infundir las historias luego de hacerse, porque contribuyó a la parte de esa historia.
¿Antes o después de la historia?
Después.
O sea, si él siguió con los sueños después de eso. Ok.
Ajá.
Do you feel that the premonition, the dreams, keep on going after the movie, after the writing of the screenplay and the movie? I know it's crazy.
Well, in the sense that this entire life we live in is dream life, you know. Yes, absolutely. The idea is not to get attached to the nightmare, you know. It's simply a dream on Elm Street, really. That's the life all of us lead, you know. So I'm not someone who is very linear as a person or as a writer. But we cling to we become obsessed with ideas of reality, you know. The idea that Wes Craven, I had shown a very strange script. I think maybe the film director Paul Bartel had given it to Wes, and it was very strange. And I didn't know Wes Craven at the time. And the idea that Wes would call me and ask me to write this movie with him, completely a dream, you know? So yes, I feel that the dream does not end, but to feel that the dream is myself as a screenwriter is complete fantasy, you know? So the question I understand was a bit poetic and perhaps whimsical, but that's what this life is, poetic and whimsical. And it does have its horrific moments, this life, and its sacred and timeless moments, but it's all a dream to me, you know, to me.
I know why it's poetical because Ruben loves that saga almost in a poetic way, and I will translate that phrase, a beautiful phrase. That
But who
is
is
not
the person that asked the question again?
Ruben Arnaiz. He's an indie filmmaker from Spain and a big friend of the channel, and I think the biggest fan in Spain from Nightmare on Elm Street. And I will translate that part that is not a nightmare, it's a dream. John, es que dijo una frase bellísima. Dijo que la pregunta es muy poética. John, es que no es pesadilla en la calle del infierno, es el sueño en la calle del infierno.
También quiero referenciar sobre dos producciones que son bastante súper interesantes para mí. Y yo lo felicito porque al escribir la historia referenció el estándar alto de las mujeres protagónicas en el cine. Quisiera preguntarle cómo usted ha visto influenciado la evolución de los personajes femeninos al momento de escribirlos, porque en Losing You, ven, se destacó muchísimo y en Woman in Film fue lo mejor de lo mejor entender el cine desde la perspectiva de la mujer.
Okay, this is a great question from John. Talking about yet a novel that later was adapted, that as I am losing you, but also in Women in Film, because and for me it's important what you did to showcase the work of women in the film industry. So tell us more about it.
Yeah, Women in Film was a section from my novel, I'm Losing You. And I had the opportunity to make a digital film of it. There were a number of filmmakers that did, including Richard Linklater and others that made these digital films that eventually were shown, I think, at Cannes and maybe, I think, Sundance. And it really allowed me to explore the idea of the complexity of women And the title was a little bit ironic, you know, because these women I was truly celebrating, but they don't have the typical characteristics that would cause them to be celebrated. They're very complex. In one case, one of them is a sociopath, mentally ill. And one asks, well, why would I celebrate that woman? It's because I fall in love with the characters that I write of. So I had that woman in the film. Another character was a casting director, a Black woman whose child is born blind, you know. Then Beverly D'Angelo played an actress that was struggling. So it's for me, it was a dark celebration of the complexity of being a woman on the planet, not just in Hollywood.
Es una oscura celebración de ser mujer en el planeta, no solo en Hollywood. Y Jhon, es increíble. Ese documental es basado en un capítulo del libro, de esa novela.
Excelente.
Wow.
Es una buena respuesta. Gracias, Bruce, por eso. Voy a hablarte sobre los libros. Tú tienes Westpansman. Yo tengo la mía que es For Mayor. Bueno, sabes más francés, pero yo quiero felicitarte por el tema que se aborda en lo que es de los guiones. Así me he sentido yo cuando escribo un guión y cuando lo termino. Me siento como si el guión mío fuera lo mejor de este mundo. Pero cuando lo lee otra persona o alguien, ya baja el estándar. Quisiera preguntarle cómo ha influido que al leer su libro muchas personas desean construir un guión.
Y no sé si decir lo que tú me dijiste, que esta novela que tiene sus años, sientes que se adelantó a muchas producciones que hay
Claro.
ahorita que tú amas. Okay, this is a really beautiful question from Jhon, because he read Force Majeure. He loved it in the way that he told me that he felt in that way when he wrote screenplays like, oh yeah, I think the screenplay wrote is the best thing ever, but somebody else read it. Nah. And another, because he told me the favorite series from Jhon is Californication. Do you feel that this novel like really anticipated for this kind of shows, this kind like yeah biographies to Hollywood? In fact, you have wrote a lot about the dark side of Hollywood. But tell us more about Force Majeure.
Force Majeure began as short stories, and I would type them up and send them around to friends. And to my surprise, they started to get a lot of attention from my friends. And one of my friends said, let's publish these. So we published them, 4 short stories, and an edition of 1,000, desktop publishing. We sold them in a bookstore in West Hollywood called Book Soup. They sold out. The book was reviewed. Oliver Stone optioned the book for a movie. And based on the little book of short stories, I got a book deal with, I think it was Random House, to make them into a novel. But like Maps to the Stars, for me, it was it was almost psychoanalysis for myself. I was so depressed at my life in Hollywood that I thought I would write about that life as a kind of inferno. And it was a way that it was cathartic for me. I was able to almost exorcise the demons that had beset me, which were drug addiction and paranoia and this idea of utter catastrophic failure. So I thought if I can write about those things honestly and poetically, then it would be a step toward healing, you know? So that was Force Majeure. Yeah. And we almost made it into a movie. Oliver Stone introduced me to Billy Wilder, right? And Billy Wilder had an office in Beverly Hills. He was in his late 80s, but he was very on top of it. And he had some ideas for casting. He wanted Bud's mother to be played by Shelley Winters, right? But for some reason, that movie never came together. Things, happen as they should, or they don't happen as they should. But that was my first novel. So one's first novel, one's first film, one has a very interesting and strange attachment to.
But do you feel that Stone take like inspiration? I know that Natural Born Killers is from Tarantino, but like in the depiction of this dark side of the media, and I want to ask you something because when I read about Force Majeure, I thought at the beginning that it was that movie that made Robin Onslaught. No, it's another Force Majeure. But do you know about that other movie?
Yes. He's the one that did Triangle of Sadness, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the score.
Yeah, and I have to say that his best movie is Force Majeure. I mean, The Square and Triangle of Sadness was as if, for me, they were made by someone else.
You're completely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I needed to ask it.
Yeah.
Jhon, continúa.
Tengo mi última pregunta, obviamente para redes, fotos, todo. Más bien es sobre las actuaciones. La primera y una de las icónicas actuaciones de Bruce, y es Iron Man, es algo supremamente violentísimo, muy bueno,
Peliculota.
me pareció súper buena. Y el primer rol de él en el cine, lo primero de lo primero, Head Office. Quisiera preguntarte qué recuerdas de esa primera vez y de recordar una de las películas más, pues, duras y difíciles
Infravaloradas.
de ver. Ajá.
Es una joya. Okay. As a last question, this is an interesting experiment because Jhon always asks about the beginnings of the careers of the guests, but now we will do it at the end. What do you remember in your, like I say, debut in Head Office, but also a very underrated movie, I, Madman, a violent movie, by the way. Tell us about it.
My friend wrote and directed that movie, Ken Finkelman. He's Canadian, and he had a kind of unhappy time, I think, in Hollywood. He was a wonderful comedy writer, and he was offered the job of directing either Airplane 2 or Grease 2. I can't remember. He did both of those. He directed them both. But he then broke free of the machine, and he wound up being extraordinarily successful in Canada, a kind of auteur for television, writing and starring in his own television shows. One was called The Newsroom. But Ken wrote Head Office, and I think I was depressed a lot in those days. So it was not only, I was maybe 27 or 8, come to Toronto and be a co-star in this movie. It was something that another part of the strange dream, So, but Wally Shawn and Michael O'Donoghue, the writer who I think started at the Harvard Lampoon and then later was one of the head writers at SNL, were there, and I just remember it being a lovely time, and but it's not something that I think I might have used it for one of my novels, the experience parts of it, the humiliating aspects of it, because I'm not an actor, regardless of being in Knight of Cups, you know what I mean? So I did my best, you know what I mean? But it was kind of foolishness ultimately. And there's not much more to say about it,
But you got even a better resume of acting than many actors. I mean, those directors. Oh man, Night of Cops. I know, Jhon, ¿qué quieres hacer? Para mí, una entrevistota.
No, para mí es excelente. Además, yo pues, le quería preguntar, ya que queda ya algunos tiempos de poder hablarnos sobre Mother Tongue, que es la primera nueva producción de él, que infunde mucho la cultura asiática.
Oh, yes. We got a little time, so tell us more about Mother Tongue, a new production.
Yes, Mother Tongue is a film. It was actually filmed during the pandemic. It's an adaptation of my book, I Met Someone. And Josie Ho and her husband Conroy were interested in doing something with me after Maps to the Stars. Josie is a producer and an actress from Hong Kong. So I told them what the idea was, which is an insanely unusual idea, very daring. And she immediately said yes, they both did. So I wrote the script, and not too long afterward, they were filming it in Hong Kong. It was originally, like Maps to the Stars, meant to be filmed entirely in Los Angeles, but because of the pandemic, it was impossible. So it actually is filmed in Hollywood in Hong Kong for Hollywood. Hong Kong passes for Hollywood. Mike Figgis directed it, and one of the tragedies was that one of its stars is Julian Sands, who, as you know, recently they found his remains. Julian was an extraordinary actor and one of the loveliest men I've known. That it's added something very poignant to the movie. The film is being finished now. I think Mike just did his cut in Hong Kong, and hopefully it'll be in some festivals in spring or summer of next year.
The same Mike Figgis only in Las Vegas? I feel bad for not knowing about this project because I love that director and of course Mr. Roberts, and hopefully this be like an homage for Julian Sands. I will translate. Jhon, gracias por hacer esa pregunta. Julian Sands está en el elenco, para descanse, y el director es Mike Figgis, el mismo de Living Las Vegas y el mismo de Mr. Roberts.
Y The Outsiders, ese mismo The Outsiders, son grandes.
No, estoy sin palabras.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Bruce. Bueno. Primero vamos a tomar la foto y luego primero dígale sobre el mensaje y todo.
Okay. Bruce, we are going to take first a picture that I will keep on really because I'm a writer. I really love talking with writers, mostly screenwriters. But after the picture, I'm going to read. There is a new section on the show that I read a message that wrote Jhon. But first the picture.
And ahora sí.
This is the halo because it's very sunny here.
And it's all good.
Okay. There is only 3 paragraphs. From your earliest steps to your most recent achievements, you had demonstrated a unique ability to tell captivating and provocative stories. Your cinematic vision has led audience to explore uncharted worlds, challenging conventions, and leaving a deep impression on every world you have created. Your screenplays are true masterpieces, yes, I'm agree, full of emotional depth and masterful dialogue. Every word you write comes to life on the screen, transporting viewers to fascinating and mystifying universe. Your ability to capture the essence of the characters and their experience is exceptional, creating real connections between the audience and the story unfolding before their eyes. Might this day be filled with joy and satisfaction, knowing that your work has been recognized and admired by so many. Congratulations again, Bruce Wagner, on your incredible career as a filmmaker and screenwriter. We look forward to your future projects. In this project with my figures, of course, I will look forward. And the unique stories you had to tell. Bravo.
Andreas, Jhon, thank you for your generosity and your heartfelt time. I really appreciate it. It's lovely.
I will ask you something. How do you know Cucuta? And that's the reason I'm asking, man, because this year I got the vlog. Jhon wasn't that day because Jhon was preparing something, but I met Guillermo Arriaga here in this small city, and for me it's like surreal talking with Guillermo, talking to you, two amazing screenwriters. So hopefully someday you'll be in Cucuta. How do you know about this city? That even the
I had,
Colombians say.
I might have been talking about it with, Sebastian Silva. Do you know him?
Sí.
His new movie is extraordinary. It's called Rotting in the Sun, and it is astonishingly good. It stars Jordan Firstman, and Sebastian is one of the stars as well. Perhaps you could have him on your show. He's just extraordinary, and this film is beyond belief. Beyond belief. You will love it.
And he told you about Cúcuta. I will translate that part. John, te vas a emocionar. Ahí viene quien le habló de Cúcuta a Bruce, Sebastián Silva. Y está diciendo que su última película es una belleza. Y ojalá lo tengamos en el canal.
Ojalá.
Solo te digo eso. Te lo dejo ahí. O sea, Sebastián Silva le habló de nuestra ciudad. Imagínate. A ti
Excelente.
te gusta el cine de él, ¿no?
Por supuesto, claro. No, la
John.
verdad, felicitarlo. Tus redes sociales, Bruce, eso es lo más
Yes.
importante.
And we need to do this. Tell your social media so people can follow you.
Say it again.
Tell your social media so people can
I
follow
have
you
no social
if they
media.
want it.
I have none. Zero.
It's better in that way. No,
I would never
Bruce,
get any work done if I did,
I will translate that, John, que si él tuviera redes sociales, él no habría escrito ningún libro. Pero John, gracias. John, de mi parte, gracias.
No, con muchísimo
Cumpliste
gusto,
un
la
sueño.
verdad. Bruce, gracias por esta oportunidad. My pleasure, God bless you, God weekend, man.
Gracias. Thank you both.
No, gracias a ti. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Ciao.
Good day.
I'm speechless.
Ciao.
Good day.